This review is going to cover extremely sensitive topics, such as anti-Semitism and Nazism. I've been holding off on this review for a while exactly for that reason, because this production has completely altered my brain chemistry. From here on in, viewer discretion is advised. But before I begin, a hearty willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome to Jack Reviews Musicals. Now, if this is your first time that you're seeing my face on the internet, my name is Jack, and I am a musical theater superfan based in St. Louis, Missouri. What you have stumbled upon is my YouTube channel where I share my thoughts on all of the musical productions that I go out to see in St. Louis. In this video, I am going to be sharing my thoughts on New Jewish Theater's production of the musical Cabaret, which is currently playing at the St. Louis Jewish Community Center from now until the 13th of April of 2025. This show has been playing to sold-out houses, standing ovations, and rave reviews from audiences and critics across the board. Now, this is the first professional production of Cabaret being performed in St. Louis since 2014, if my math is correct, though I could be wrong on that. I was fairly new to theater going then. This production here is directed by New Jewish Theater's artistic director, Rebecca Scallett, who essentially dragged New Jewish Theater out of the doldrums of the pandemic into a new age of programming for the company. Their agenda is to produce at least one musical every year. And since they have made this formula known, one of the first musicals that came to my mind that they were inevitably going to produce was Cabaret. Cabaret premiered on Broadway in 1966, featuring a score by the geniuses behind Chicago, John Kander and Fred Ebb, as well as a book by She Loves Me scribe Joe Mastroff. The show is based on John Van Druten's 1951 play I Am a Camera, which was in turn based on Christopher Isherwood's 1939 novel Goodbye to Berlin. Cabaret won the Tony Award for Best Musical in 1967, along with Best Score, Best Director for Hal Prince, and Best Featured Actor for Joel Grey, as the MC of the Kit Kat Club, which would go on to be one of the most coveted roles in musical theater history. Grey would later go on to reprise his role as the MC in the 1972 film adaptation, directed by Bob Fosse. Grey would also share the screen with the movie stars Michael York and Liza Minnelli. Grey, Minnelli, and Fosse would all go on to win Oscars for their work on this film. However, at the 1973 Oscars, Cabaret lost Best Picture to The Godfather, and to this day, Cabaret holds the record for the most Oscar wins that does not include Best Picture. But Cabaret has endured. It has been revived on Broadway 4 times, with the most famous revival being the 1998 version, which was directed by Sam Mendes and starring Alan Cumming as the MC. New Jewish Theater's production is coming off the heels of the 2024 revival, directed by Rebecca Frecknell and starring Eddie Redmayne as the MC, along with a rotating roster of stunt casts, from Billy Porter to Adam Lambert to Orville Peck. Now, that revival has been getting some traction for being a fully immersive production. It completely transformed Broadway's August Wilson Theater into the Kit Kat Club, complete with forcing the audience to enter through a stage door and cast members offering you shots. Decisions that have been met with mixed success. New Jewish Theater's production, under the direction of Rebecca Scallett and dramaturgy by the St. Louis Kaplan Feldman Holocaust Museum, is much more of a return to the Sam Mendes version, which was a lot more semi-immersive. But for its visual style, they actually used the aesthetics of the 1966 production. New Jewish Theater has indeed turned their black box space, the Wool Studio Theater, into the Kit Kat Club. When you first enter the Wool Studio, there's a small walkway before you actually get into the audience seating. And this walkway, beautifully rendered, nightclub entrance. There's a sign on the wall of the Kit Kat Club, reminiscent of late 20s to early 30s graphic design. The wall is painted in red and gold, the floor is checkerboard. There's a large gold-framed mirror, an ornate chandelier, a Victrola in the corner of the space that actually plays a significant role in the first act. And when you get into the club proper, However, a good third of the audience seating are actually cabaret-style tables that you are encouraged to sit in if you are coming in groups. And the standard audience seating is configured in this triangular formation, and it beholds this massive wooden stage that has easily 100 footlights with an iron wrought multi-level platform flanked by velvet curtains and bronze archways. The columns on the set even have telephones that act as a party line for the club. The only major set piece on stage is a door that gets rolled across the stage to switch between locations. And there's other furniture and props too that actually allowed pretty economical scene changes. It was all gorgeous to look at. The set was designed by David Blake and the props were designed by Katie Orr. The craft and artistry of their work here was only a prelude to the darkness. And so we are welcomed into the Kit Kat Club by the Master of Ceremonies, introducing us to the ensemble of cabaret girls and boys entering through the audience's space, teasing and flirting with them, having fun, and performing one of the most iconic numbers in musical theater, Willkommen, imploring us that we will forget all our troubles by the night's end. Now, New Jewish Theater's production of Cabaret is quite unique because in most productions, the cabaret boys and girls are an ensemble that is separate from the main cast. But in here, the boys and the girls play all of the roles with a total cast of 11 actors counting the MC. And because everybody in the cast is of different body types and different ages, they accommodate for this by having the MC introduce them as different cabaret act types. The sharpshooter, the clown, the strongman, the ventriloquist. Pretty clever way to use your cast when you're on a small budget. I probably would have never thought to do that myself. And so this ensemble of 11 has all come together to regale us a story of 4 bohemians who have found true love at the wrong place at the wrong time. The place is Berlin, and the day is New Year's Eve, 1929. The twilight years, the Jazz Age, the end of the Weimar Republic of Germany, and at the onset of the Great Depression. We center ourselves on 2 sets of lovers, one young, one old. The young lovers that we are introduced to first are American writer Cliff Bradshaw and English singer Sally Bowles. Cliff has traveled to Berlin to find inspiration for his latest novel, which he does in the city's bohemian nightlife. He visits the Kit Kat Club, where he meets the MC, who to him is this enigmatic, alluringly mysterious figure. And Cliff attracts the attention of Sally, the club's chanteuse. And when Sally is introduced to us through her first 2 songs, Don't Tell Mama and Mein Herr, it makes it clear that Sally lives this carefree, hedonistic lifestyle. She calls Cliff on the club's party line, and the 2 of them actually hit it off right away. Sally even drags Cliff backstage to introduce him to the other Kit Kat dancers. One thing led to another, causing Cliff to experience a bit of a bisexual awakening. This catches the attention of Max, the club's owner, and seeing as how Sally is to blame for all of this, he fires her and tosses her out. And after a lot of reluctance and resistance, Cliff decides to take Sally in. His apartment is in an extremely cheap boarding house run by the landlady Fraulein Schneider, who herself was convinced to reduce Cliff's rent from 100 Reichmarks to 50. So Cliff and Sally come up with this peculiar living arrangement to try and make the rent work. Cliff decides that one of the things to make ends meet is to be an English language teacher. His number 1 client ends up being Ernst Ludwig, a merchant working in Berlin's black market. And in return for English lessons, Ernst hires Cliff as an assistant for his black market dealings so that Cliff can get a little bit extra scratch on the side. But now let's turn our attention to the old lovers, the landlady Fraulein Schneider and middle-aged Jewish fruit merchant Herr Schultz. One of the boarding house's residents, Fraulein Kost, is a prostitute, constantly bringing in sailors to the building for her services, which is something that Fraulein Schneider frowns upon. And so, as a deterrent from her worries, Herr Schultz courts Fraulein Schneider, giving her such romantic gestures as a California pineapple and Italian oranges, something that at this point in time would be viewed as very luxurious and ostentatious. The arrangements between the young and the old lovers go on for a few months. Sally and Cliff, through their living arrangement, end up legitimately falling in love with each other. And pretty soon, Sally finds out that she is pregnant, and she has no idea who the father is. Because of how hard Cliff has it for Sally, he decides he is going to help Sally raise her baby, and they give each other a brief glimmer of hope for their future. But then, it all comes crashing down. At the same time, Fraulein Schneider and Herr Schultz decide to get married, and at their engagement party, Ernst Ludwig arrives, so that he can close out a black market transaction with Cliff. But in the course of doing so, Ernst reveals that he's actually a Nazi soldier, serving in the now fast-emerging Third Reich. And he also takes the liberty to warn Fraulein Schneider that marrying the Jew, Schultz, is going to be extremely dangerous if the Nazis are as powerful as they are starting to become. From that point on, Cabaret starts to take on a very unexpected, uncomfortable turn. It starts out as being this incredibly jubilant and aggressively sexy story of four people finding love in Bohemia. But now, it's this dark, intelligently, brilliantly constructed allegory. One that stands for the world's various responses to the rise of the Third Reich and Nazism. Cliff represents America. He's disgusted with the Nazis, but he realizes that he has to fight from the outside, or else face the consequences. Sally represents England, who turned a blind eye to Germany, choosing to believe this has nothing to do with her, and gets to the point where she kind of sympathizes with the Nazis somewhat. Herr Schultz represents German Jews, and he is totally in denial. He thinks that because he's a German patriot, the Nazis can't get to him, so he shouldn't be worried. At some point in the show, a Nazi throws a brick through his shop window, and Schultz just plays it off as a schoolboy prank. Schneider represents German Gentiles who are allies of German Jews. They know just how powerful the Nazis are, but they are choosing to stay hidden. They're scared. They're paranoid of the people around them. Literally anyone could be a Nazi. Fraulein Schneider even says at one point, "I can't trust anyone anymore. For all I know, a Nazi could be my neighbor, my friend, my family." That concept is actually represented by Ernst, who starts the show as this genial, cordial gentleman. But then, after the reveal, he becomes the antagonist. There's also allegory in Fraulein Kost. She represents the side of Germany whose hands were tied, where they literally had no other choice but to play along with the Nazi strategy in order to get by. The MC is a representation of Germany as an entity. Throughout the show, the MC inserts himself into the story, breaking the fourth wall to show both the characters and the audience the realities of Germany falling to fascism. When the Nazi throws the brick through Schultz's shop window, the MC plays the Nazi. The MC also rolls out the Victrola from earlier to play a recording of the Nazi marching anthem, "Tomorrow Belongs to Me," which, by the way, was an original song for Cabaret written by Kander and Ebb, but the lyrics were so much reminiscent of other Nazi marching songs, it has actually been adopted by Nazis IRL. But I digress. The last allegorical stand-in that I have to talk about is the Kit Kat Club, which is in itself the fishbowl of the world. It's a funhouse mirror that reflects this warped version of reality back onto the audience, displaying how absurd this whole situation speculation is about how the Third Reich's meteoric rise to power, how the Nazis were allowed to commit so many atrocities and crimes against humanity, was entirely because of political compliance, societal complacency, and social apathy. And that is the theme that Cabaret explores the most. And the way that John Kander, Fred Ebb, and Joe Mastroff have adapted this material to craft this essentially cautionary tale is quite brilliant, and it has very unfortunately proven to have stood the test of time. Like during Act 2, when a character is in the audience's space and the spotlight on them shines onto the audience too, I could clearly see people who were grimacing at what they were seeing. I could see people withholding the urge to laugh or applaud during disturbing songs if you could see her being a big one. And even the final image, the last stage tableau of the entire production, was legitimately disturbing. The show ended without applause, except for the curtain call, in which the audience gave a standing ovation. And because of where I was sitting in the space, I was one of the first people to leave the theater, and as I was watching everybody walk out, they were all dead silent. Their shoulders were slouched forward, their breathing was more heavy, like they were all just visibly upset. And that is the reaction that I want people to have when they see Cabaret. Like, Cabaret works because the first act draws us in so well into this rowdy party atmosphere, but at the same time, these super detailed characters with stories that make you really invested in them. Like, we were really having a blast at this. Like, when the rug gets pulled out from under us, we fell flat on our asses, and it hurt. But in order for a production of Cabaret to succeed, you really have to draw us into the world of the Kit Kat Club from the get-go. And New Jewish Theater does that like gangbusters. The staging of director Rebecca Scallett makes use of the entirety of the Wolf Studio Theater, even in the corners and the aisles. Her staging is fully immersive, you almost get lost in it. And the intense book scenes of characters confronting or denying the Nazi threat are staged with a deep nuance and humanity. The MC in this production is played by Spencer Davis Milford, whose interpretation is a bit of a return to Joel Grey's original. Instead of being oversexed like Alan Cumming was, or whatever the hell Eddie Redmayne was, Milford is much more ominous. In Willkommen, he develops a very welcoming rapport with the audience and has great fun with the rest of the cast as he introduces them. But as the show goes on, as he keeps lurking behind the action, he makes himself a genuinely foreboding presence. When we keep cutting back into the Kit Kat Club after the MC keeps inserting himself into the narrative and exposing the increasingly dark reality of the Nazis' rise, Milford infuses both his body language and voice with this escalating sense of menace and danger. And it just keeps building until the MC's Act 2 torch song, I Don't Care Much, where the MC just completely gives in and submitting himself to be a victim of the terrible state that Germany is in. And Milford doesn't portray this through screaming terror, but rather quiet defeat. And he even made the choice to emphasize this by taking off a costume piece that has become one of his signatures in this production. Elbow-length, fingerless fishnet gloves. He slips them off and he rests them on the onstage piano as a sign that, yes, this party is over. It's a gripping performance, and it only works because Milford has so much fun with it. Even the darkly ironic lyrics in much of his songs is really sold by his enthusiasm. But quite possibly the most difficult role in Cabaret is Cliff, because he starts the show as being rather restrained, and the way that he's written with his reactions to these different revelations regarding the other characters, he can easily come off as being very whiny, preachy, or kind of unnecessarily harsh. But in New Jewish Theater's production, to combat this, the actor playing Cliff, Dustin Petrillo, he interprets these moments with unwavering confidence and self-assuredness. Dustin Petrillo's Cliff is very worldly, more than most actors are willing to portray. Petrillo walks a rather precarious acting tightrope of trying to make Cliff's sexual awakening at the Kit Kat Club feel a lot less like a 180 from when we first meet him after Willkommen. Sally Bowles has become one of the most sought-after roles in musical theater along with the MC, and Haley Medrano totally owns her. Medrano fully embodies Sally's carefree selfishness that makes Sally's downfall essentially telegraphed from the start. Medrano's interpretations of Don't Tell Mama and Mine Hair are exuberant in their defiance. During her song, she has this "please make me a star" quality that is always underneath the surface. And as Sally continues to deny the Nazi threat, Medrano becomes increasingly desperate, with the finale, Cabaret, making her go full manic to the point it was totally disturbing. But these extremes are counterbalanced by Medrano's interpretation of Maybe This Time, where Sally comes back down to earth and realizes that settling with Cliff is probably going to be the best thing to ever happen to her. And Medrano sells that superbly. She makes you see why Sally would fall for someone like Cliff. Their stage time together is at turns magnetic, hopeful, but ultimately heartbreaking. Jane Paradise and Dave Cooperstein as Fraulein Schneider and Herr Schultz are simply a revelation. It was a real shame that the movie cut these two characters out, and that it's been kind of culturally agreed upon that the older couple are more of a subplot. But Rebecca Scala doesn't agree. She gives the old couple's time together an equal amount of importance to the young ones. Jane Paradise portrays Fraulein Schneider's growth from apathy and so what to optimism and Couldn't Please Me More to fear and What Would You Do, all without feeling schmaltzy. And the same goes for Dave Cooperstein's Herr Schultz, whose awkwardness in It Couldn't Please Me More and his quiet confidence in marriage feels authentic for a person his age seeking a relationship after such a long time away. Paradise and Cooperstein infuse their romantic pursuits with a childlike innocence that makes their breakup all the more tragic. You feel Schneider's fear. You feel Schultz's uncertainty. And their collective melancholy at the end is palpable. Aaron Fisher, he was last seen on the channel as Dimitri in Tesseract Theater's production of Anastasia, but now, instead of playing the male romantic lead, he is playing the antagonist, Ernst Ludwig. Talk about range. A challenge that Aaron Fisher was more than up to. He really is ideal casting. Fisher exudes this youthful geniality that, when it's revealed what Ernst's true motives really are, it feels like a gut punch. Like, you can hear gasps in the audience. Caroline Pillow absolutely aces Fraulein Kost's unscrupulous nature, playing everyone around her like pawns in her own personal game of chess. Pillow's portrayal makes for a great parallel to Haley Medrano's Sally, who makes more of a show of optimism compared to Kost's cold cynicism. Pillow's rendition of the Nazi anthem Tomorrow Belongs to Me alongside Aaron Fisher and the ensemble made for a truly scary Act 1 finale. New Jewish Theater gathered an ensemble of 4 actors who are all stellar quadruple threats. They all play multiple roles, they sing and dance vigorously in the group numbers, and they're multi-instrumentalists that fill out the onstage band. Everyone in the cast is naturally charismatic. Their talent feels effortless. The work that they do in this show is exceptional. Jason Heil portrayed the cabaret boy Victor, the owner of the Kit Kat Club Max, and played the violin. Otto Klemp played Bobby, the cabaret boy, an imposing German customs official, a sailor being serviced by Fraulein Kost, and played both the clarinet and accordion. Amarachi Kalu played Lulu, a cabaret girl, and played the flute. And finally, Lillian Cooper as the cabaret girl Texas, who pulled off some surprisingly expressive dancing while dressed in a gorilla suit during If You Could See Her. The choreography by Ellen Isom, smart as a whip, because there is not a lot of room in that space for truly extravagant dancing. Isom more than makes up for that with intricacy, coordinating the ensemble seamlessly across the stage in the dance-heavy numbers Willkommen, Don't Tell Mama, Mein Herr, Two Ladies, Money, and the opening of Act 2, a dance number that evolves from a kick line to a goose step. It's fascinating work, as well as the stage combat and intimacy scenes that were choreographed by John Wilson, who also served as the dialect coach. The musical director for this production is Carter Haney, and his work is remarkable because he is actually making his professional debut as a music director. In fact, he is actually a university student studying music theater performance. He leads the onstage band with himself on piano, Alarica Anderson on the bass, Brad Martin on the drums, and Chris Pineda on both the trombone and accordion. Now, because the onstage band is so small and Haney is so young, you definitely get from the instrumentation and arrangement a very scrappy vibe. And the vocals were delivered with a sharpness that almost got some actors to their breaking points. In Maybe This Time, and It Couldn't Please Me More, Haley Medrano and Dave Cooperstein sounded like they were either hitting notes at the top of their range or they were singing falsetto. The title song, Cabaret, had Medrano deliver the vocal totally unhinged. The ending of Tomorrow Belongs to Me is essentially shouted at the audience, and by the end of Money, the MC is out of breath. But for Cabaret, this approach to the vocal and the music arrangement works because it sells really well the desperate circumstances of the characters, as well as the scrappiness of the Kit Kat Club. It makes the audience feel on edge, which is also aided by the sound design by Justin Smith, the costume designed by Michelle Friedman-Seiler, the wigs designed by Dennis Malam-Benzi, and the hair and makeup designed by Abby Pastorello, all harken back to the looks of the original Cabaret on Broadway. The MC and the Kit Kat dancers, for example, are much more tastefully outfitted here than some of the Broadway revivals. But you can actually still look at them and still identify them as coming from a queer nightclub. Pinned up silk dresses for the girls, mesh tank top and lederhosen for the boys. Even the MC wears eyeliner and heels with lacy tights and a garter belt. I read other reviewers in St. Louis comparing the MC's look in this production to Malcolm McDowell as Alex from A Clockwork Orange, and I can totally see it. Now, when we're outside of the club, the looks of the other characters hold loads of period detail. They make it clear the characters are hit by hard times, the older couple in particular. But what really holds this production together is the lighting design by Denise Chavez. Chavez effectively draws the audience into the main action and illuminates scenes happening in the background in ways that alternate between playful and menacing. There are moments in the show where the backmost curtain of the set is lit from behind, revealing both acts of desperation and violence being hidden by the decadence of the set. It's brilliant. The use of colors in the club scenes is marvelous. Green tones for Money, red tones for Mein Herr. The spotlights are well timed and well executed, especially in Maybe This Time and the moments where the characters are in the audience's space. Chavez even uses the footlights and arch lights to emphasize the tone tone of the more aggressive songs, from the spooky character lighting of Tomorrow Belongs to Me, to shadows being refracted onto the walls in Mein Herr, Money, and the kick line that starts Act 2. And again, it just keeps building up until the final image of the show. I still get chills thinking about it. Like, there is a reason why this production has been playing to sold-out houses. Watching New Jewish Theater's Cabaret really is a sublime experience. One of the most powerful musical theater experiences I have ever seen. And I'm not gonna lie, part of that may be because this show is playing at a Jewish community center, where a good chunk of the audience is Jewish. So it definitely makes this show feel a lot more emotionally raw, honest, and even dangerous, given the times that we're living in right now. And I really live for musical theater productions like this. The kind that feel like they are having a conversation with our world, with our own lives, our own existence. This is the kind of theater that leaves you thinking about the world differently than when you found it. Cabaret hurts to watch, and it's even alienating a lot of the time. But the risk of seeing a piece of theater, a piece of art that confronts you with harsh, uncomfortable truths is a lot better than the alternative. I would tell you to go ahead and see this production, but it's probably already sold out, and you watching this probably already have. If so, what did you think about it? Whatever it is, whatever you thought, comment below and let me know. Be sure to check out my website, jackreviewsmusicals.com, to read my back catalog of written reviews. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any more St. Louis musical theater reviews coming very soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, es libertas musical, vive la comédie musicale, and long live the musical!